And I work for the Athens Institute for Education and Research, which is a world association for academics and researchers. I would like to welcome you to Athener's interview series, where we interview the participants which attend our conference in Athens present their work. Today I'm going to interview Dr. Houman Sadri, who is an associate professor at the Central University of Florida in the USA. Hello, Dr. Sadri. Welcome to Athens.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your invitation.
Thanks for being here. So I'd like to begin by asking you to give us an academic introduction of yourself. Tell us a few things about your education, your career,
Sure.
and whatever else you'd like.
Okay. Well, I was raised in Tucson, Arizona, and that's where I went to school all the way from the beginning. And I finished even my master's there, and I did a couple of years of PhD, and then one day my mentor called me in his office and he says, well, what do you want to do with your life when you grow up? And I said, well, I think I'd like to be a professor. So he said that, if you want to get good jobs, since you've got all your degrees from University of Arizona, the best thing is going to be you go for a PhD somewhere else, to a school which is nationally recognized. So I was very much interested in international relations, and of course, there are a lot of very fine schools, and also the policy dimension of it, not just the theoretical part. I like the theory, I like the methodology, but I'm very much interested in the practical dimension of international relations, something that really actually touches people's life. So then I applied to a number of schools that they have, professors who not only teach but also they consult for the government, so they're more familiar with the policy issues. I applied to George Washington, George Mason, Georgetown, SITES, which is a special school advanced for international studies of Johns Hopkins there, University of Maryland, University of Virginia, and then thank goodness I got admitted to all of them, and then they gave me different levels of support. And then when I went actually for an interview in each one, and not only they were interviewing me, but also I was interviewing them to see how, for example, because a PhD student really requires a lot of attention. You have to spend a lot of time with the student, working with them, mentoring them to, improve the quality of their research and the quality of their writing, because, of course, publish or perish, is that right?
Yes.
So that's the main issue. My best experience at that time was actually at University of Virginia, which is established by Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, who himself went to William and Mary, which is the second oldest college in the country after Harvard, of course. So I went over there for a PhD program, and at that time, University of Virginia used to call it Foreign Affairs. Foreign affairs was for international relations, and government was for American government. And so I finished that one. I was very fortunate to earn their highest scholarship, which was Thomas Jefferson Foundation, fellowship for the PhD students. So I finished. Not just the incentive wasn't just financial, very frankly. It was simply people who were able to help me in the areas I was interested in. I was interested in international relations, so they had Professor Thompson over there, who was a protege of Hans Morgenthau, the very famous realist. They had also Professor Ines Cloth, who was a pioneer in the field of international organization, and he was actually the counterpart of Morgenthau. So I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to a school that, in terms of theory, I'm going to have a balanced view, both, realist and, idealist. Then also in terms of my area studies, I was interested in the Persian Gulf and the Caspian Sea, and there was Professor R.K. Ramazani that unfortunately just recently, last fall, he passed away. So he became my mentor for the area studies, especially in terms of the areas of Persian Gulf. PhD finishing over there, it was, I was mentored so well that my dissertation with very little changes was able to become a book. So I was able to actually get a book contract very quickly and a reputable, publisher, and then go with that book contract. I was able to secure a number of, interviews, and I was very fortunate because when I was just comparing my situation to a number of other ones, I got like 6 or 7 different, offers. So I actually had a choice, and that's what I suggest to a lot of PhD students, that they have to, put themselves in a situation that they can have actually choices. Then I started right away after grad school with University of Central Florida in Orlando. Right now UCF is the second largest university in America with 64,000. They're only second to a school from my own, home state of Arizona. It's Arizona State, which has 92,000.
Wow.
And then when I went over there at the UCF, the very first year, I was always looking for opportunities to see if I can improve my, my knowledge of the particular geographic area that I was focusing on. And an opportunity came in terms of a fellowship at Stanford. Very frankly, when I was a student, I couldn't afford going to Stanford unless somebody gives me a scholarship. And this particular fellowship, they were covering everything, a room, board, tuition, everything. And then the fellowship was focusing on the area of Central Asia, former Soviet Republic, was at the Houman Institute. So I was one of their fellows over there, and it was a great opportunity to meet also very well-known other international relation people like Bonnie the Mosquito and a number of other ones over there. That actually led to my very first scientific article publication. So I never forget that experience. It was great. And then after that, I basically continued to teach at the University of Central Florida. I came back. It was actually a one-year program, but I actually finished it in about 3 months of summer. That summer I didn't teach, and that's all I did. And the result of it was published. Came back to UCF, finished the program, and then became tenure. So right now I'm a 10-year faculty member at UCF. I'm also the coordinator of Model United Nations program. The presentation that I made here was because I noticed that a couple of the panels were dealing with teaching and educational program. Professor Papanikos, it seems like his interest has been basically in education. So right now there is a subfield in US which is becoming very, very popular called SOTEL, which is Scholarship of Teaching and Learning. This area focuses on pedagogical, type of research. So the issue is not just teaching people to see how effective these techniques are. You can, test the techniques to see how much of an impact you're making in students, how much of a learning are they doing, how effective is your own teaching. And so this has been wonderful. This has become basically my second subfield, even though my major area still is international relations, focused on security and economic relations. So that was what my presentation was all about, because I was using Model UN, which is a role-playing exercise there.
Okay, that was what I was going to ask you, but you said it by yourself.
No problem.
So how were you introduced to ATNER? And what made you attend the conference?
Okay. Well, I just like to show my, appreciation to your, I guess, I do not know which one of the offices is, as probably your PR office or something, because in the last 3-4 years, I've been receiving these emails on a regular basis, all the way from the pretty much like beginning of the year or the end of fall, about your conferences. And every single time I thought, oh, I really want to go, because it seemed like I Googled it a little bit, and it seemed like your institute is very active and a lot of people there, and the conferences, they seem very interesting. But on regular basis, I'll go to a conference which is very well known called International Studies Association, ISA. ISA is the largest association of the people who are interested in international relations, and like 6,000 people almost go there. And then every single year, this conference was so close to the dates of your conference. So of course, at the same time, I couldn't be in two different parts. I couldn't be somewhere in the US at the same time be somewhere here in Greece. This is the first opportunity that I noticed that ISA this year was in February, and your conference was basically, almost middle of April. That would give me some breathing space and to be able to finish the work and present it. And so I took this, and I was very fortunate that my proposal got admitted, and I was put in a very nice panel. I met a lot of very interesting people. I'd like to thank you and thank your director and the people, all those people who worked so hard in this conference, because it's very interesting. It's a very interdisciplinary conference. Usually conferences I go to, I see people who are IR or international relations or political scientists or maybe some historians who focus on contemporary issues. Here I have met economists, I met anthropologists, I've met artists, I've met writers, I've met people in the literature, and interesting because we exchange cards, and there are some areas that we have in common. So there is a possibility of some kind of contribution, or maybe organizing some future panels together, or maybe some work. So I'd like to thank you and the organizer of this conference for doing that.
Thank you. So, since you're an associate professor in the U.S., can you tell us a few things about the higher educational system in the U.S.? So, what do you think are the advantages and the disadvantages, in your opinion?
Excellent question. Excellent question. Well, I was, I'm a son of an immigrant, so maybe some of the things I say is kind of a little bit biased toward our system because I was raised in that system. I went to school over there. For me, that is natural. For some people, it might be different, especially people who were, for example, they come to the U.S. at the, older ages, for example, past 18, 19, 20, 21, because they've already structured. I was structured in my adopted country. So for me, that was very natural. But one thing about the academic centers in the U.S., I'm sure you know that, they're extremely competitive, extremely competitive. And so, for example, of course, all of the students, they always hunt for the best school they can get in, and it's not just getting in, it was sometimes, being able to secure financial aid for it. Before, for example, I decided to apply for Washington schools. The year before that, I had applied to Harvard, Yale, because it's, again, I guess it's a dream of many immigrants, that they want to visit New York and Statue of Liberty, is that right?
Yeah.
It's because it's a pilgrimage place for us. And then also get into Harvard and Yale or Princeton. Well, I was, again, one of those, very, very fortunate immigrants who actually got in there. And then Harvard was very, very generous by offering at that time, significant amount of scholarship to me. And then in the U.S., we have a student, loan program, which is actually supported by government. Government guarantees it. So students are able to borrow this money, especially when they wanted to go to professional schools like medical school, law school, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Or, to get a PhD. Masters, most people, they don't, but, some people do. So I was able to even, secure some of that too. But when I put all of them together, even though I was very fortunate to get such a good scholarship, still there was a gap in terms of the in terms of the final. It wasn't just the tuition; it was fees. I mean, you have to pay for your rent, you have to pay for your food, everything else. I noticed that I have to actually get a job just to balance everything. So then, what am I supposed to study? And a place like Harvard or Yale, they get the cream of the crop. You can't just go over there to the class and wing it. The professors are not going to have any respect for you. So I decided, with all the sadness, I decided to write. And I had to do it early because you want to provide. If you cannot do it, you want to provide that opportunity to somebody else, so they can give it to somebody else. So I had to decline, and for a number of years, I kept a letter to show to everybody. I had to have it framed. And then my sister one day said, "Why are you keeping this one? You have gone to a school that you like, and you had a good experience." And I thought, this is right. So I just got rid of the letter. It was very good to go to University of Virginia because it was in terms of state institutions, which obviously is a public institution. The tuition was very reasonable. I still had to borrow money, but that was much more doable. So I didn't have to have too many jobs. I basically got their fellowship, and I started, I borrowed money, and that was good enough for me to go through. And then the location of Charlottesville is wonderful because it's close enough to DC, but you're not in one of the DC schools. DC, District of Columbia, Washington, DC, is full of very, very fine schools. But the students, there is so much activity going on in DC that sometimes students, they get really distracted. And a PhD program that has to finish, let's say, in 3 or 4 or maximum 5 years takes 8 or 9 years, because they, they go to this conference, they go to that, they get distracted, you see. So no, for me, it was like, Charlottesville was like an academic village. I was able to focus on my program, finish it on time, and then, I was able to actually get ahead of some of my friends that they decided about DC schools. And yes, they did have opportunity for some very nice internship, but eventually wherever you go, after you start your academic career, it really depends on your publication, and how active you are in terms of going to conferences, connections you make, and those things. So that has worked out for me. So I have no complaint.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your support.